Hello everybody, I'm Clouderman and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 1. So in episode 1, we ended off flying this rocket, which is the Pathfinder 2 delivery system. Now, in the interim, I obviously made a mistake with the saves, and unfortunately that last flight that I did at the end of the last video is now lost, which means that this satellite actually hasn't been placed into orbit yet. Now, you might think that's a bad thing, however, it actually turns out that's actually a good thing, because there were several issues with that rocket that I wanted to, fix, but then I had a bit of a quandary because I'd already put both versions of the Pathfinder into orbit, but then this actually means that I can, modify this rocket. So I have actually done a couple of little tweaks on this. I've added the tiniest of tiniest decouplers in between the command pod and the actual cluster. I've also added one or two more cameras, but otherwise I haven't really done much else to it. We have actually reduced the fuel as well, because I realised that the readings that we were getting for the Delta V on the last episode were actually just for the launch vehicle, not the actual, cluster itself. So after a bit of testing and tweaking, I've worked out that around about just over half a tank of fuel will actually get this thing into a nice suborbital trajectory, which then allows us to actually fire these as they should be fired. So yeah, let's get this launch out of the way and then we can get into the main part of this video. One thing I want to do is I want to launch this one from a different pad, so we'll go to select launch site, and I think I'm going to choose TSC-05 on this. Now, TSC-05 is actually on the other side of the planet, so let's make sure that is actually in the daylight before we launch. So yeah, you can see that the TSC-05 is over here, whereas the Kerbal Space Center is right there, so it's on the exact opposite side of the planet. It is at a higher inclination on the surface though, so it means we won't be able to get into a perfectly equatorial orbit from here. But let's warp to complete on this and let's actually get this thing onto the pad. So let's get into this launch. So throttle up, RCS on. I'm actually going to leave SAS off for this one, and we will go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a launch. Now we're going to roll to 90 degrees. I should have rolled the other way ideally, but it doesn't matter. Then once we get to the correct heading, we're going to immediately start pitching. And then once we reach 5 degrees on the nav ball, we're just going to sit there for a little while. Now you can see that the prograde marker is starting to drift away, so I'm going to turn off SAS so we actually drift into the prograde marker. And I'm also going to throttle up as well. Now ideally we should be at 45 degrees once we reach around about 10,000 meters. I'm going to throttle down once the aerodynamic effects start as well. We are a little bit high at the moment, but that's not a problem. We're going to just keep doing our gravity turn with the SAS turned off until we reach 45 degrees. And then once we are there, we'll activate our SAS. And you'll notice in the top left, I have actually got some more of the Kerbal Engineer information up, including our acceleration speed and our thrust to weight ratio. And that's just so we can try and keep an eye on it and, see what kind of thrust to weight ratio we are dealing with. But anyway, our apoapsis at present is 44 kilometers, and we are getting nice and high. We've got a couple of 100 more Delta V left in this stage, so we'll throttle up a little bit. Actually, you know what? Now the burn effects have started, I'm actually going to throttle down instead, and then we're going to turn off SAS again and go towards our prograde marker. In fact, we're going to go a little bit below it. As you can see, the aerodynamics aren't a problem now, so let's start the aerodynamics. Let's start up SAS again once we are just above the horizon. You can see now our apoapsis is at 74 kilometers, which is good, so we could actually go a little bit below the horizon instead. And now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go full throttle until we run out of fuel. And once we are there, we will decouple from the main stage. It's just one of the cameras I've got, not the best lighting there, but we are in a good position. Now that's a bit better. We are in a good position to actually get ourselves into orbit. So we have 1 minute and 23 seconds until we actually achieve orbit or achieve our apoapsis. So I'm just going to have a little look around on this camera because this is one of the cameras I added to the actual craft itself. If you want to know what mod this is Hullcam VDS, and you literally only need to press the plus and the minus keys on your keyboard to cycle between the cameras. It's a pretty cool mod, is this, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. Anyways, let's get ourselves a pointed prograde. In fact, we're going to go a little bit below the horizon. Then, as I say, we are going to start preparing for our orbital insertion. So for this particular setup, what we want to do, each of these engines burns for 6 seconds, and the solid rocket boosters, so of course once you start them they don't stop. So the general theory is that you are supposed to start your burn about half of the burn length before the burn, like before you actually reach your apoapsis. So for this one we would need to burn at 9 seconds before the apoapsis. However, once we reach 15 seconds, I'm actually going to turn off the SAS, and then I'm going to start a spin stabilization maneuver. Now at 9 seconds we can fire our first set of engines, then our second set of engines, and then our final engine. And now if we look in the bottom left, you can see that our periapsis is at 75 kilometers, whereas our apoapsis is at 3.7 million. Is at 3.7 million meters, so that's however many kilometers. Let's do a little bit of science with the Pathfinder 2. So the atmospheric scan is obviously in an invalid situation. It turns out we are actually we are already running a temperature scan, which is pretty good. Let's have a look at our data information. Now, of course, this is a part of Kerbalism. However, it's not sending... Oh. Is that how you send the information? Anyways, I think we're going to leave this just to do its thing. It's got a little bit more electric charge left, but not a huge amount. It does have a solid fuel stage, actually, doesn't it? Tell you what, I want to see what that does. So let's close these up and let's see what happens when we stage. Oh! I did not know it had an engine on the nose. That's very interesting. So what's that done to our... it's not really touched our actual apoapsis or periapsis, has it? Our actual orbit. Well, but yeah, that was interesting. I did not know that had a retro motor in the front. So yeah, I think that was a pretty successful flight. That also means that this vehicle, because I mean I've only just started to actually get a handle on how to fly this thing, it seems a shame to actually get rid of it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to first of all reroute to the command pod, and then I'm going to get rid of the actual payload. Finally, what I'm going to do is max out the fuel tank just so that we know we've got all our full fuel. We'll also make sure we are renumbering it to number 3, just as a kind of reference. And then I'm going to come to sub-assemblies. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically put this in here as the Sandstone 1 Mark 1, I think, or Block 1. We'll do Block 1, screw it. Seems to be the in thing at the minute, doesn't it? So Block 1, which means that when we modify this in the future, then we will actually be able to call it the Block 2 and so on, and we can add stuff to it, because I'd like to put another satellite up, but I'd like to do it in a more controlled manner this time. So for that, I think I'm going to try a new rocket. So we will first of all search for, I think it's the Eaton. Oh, it's the Eastern, isn't it? There we go, the Eastern rocket. So the Eastern rocket is essentially the equivalent in this mod pack of the Vanguard rocket, as I mentioned. So I'm going to quickly throw this together. That took me all of about 2 minutes to build, if that, maybe less. And then it just comes down to testing and tweaking and adding the actual payload. But it is a pretty cool pack, is this. We've got various different, real-world analogs dotted around, so we'll see how many of these we use. I will be doing custom rockets at some point, but anyway, let's get the payload in this and let's get this sorted. Well, this is essentially what I have come up with. I know it doesn't look like much given that it is, modelled on an actual rocket. However, I've added a few, separation modes here and there. Nothing special. The only thing that I've done special with this rocket, though, is at the top here. So basically what I have done with the payload delivery system is I've just taken the second stage of this rocket and I've just shrunk it down using tweak scale to 50%. And this should hopefully give us a much more stable, orbital insertion. Now, I have been planning on putting the Gnarly probe into orbit to attempt to complete the Establish a Stable Orbit mission. However, I had a look at it earlier and I've realised that we actually need to return as well. So this isn't going to work to be able to complete that mission. However, we should be able to use it to, get some science from space. So what we'll do is we'll close this back up. And I will just save this because I'm editing a rocket that is in the VAB or that's in the build list already. And once this is built, we will get onto the launch pad. Here we are on the pad. The inaugural flight of the Viking Mark 1 with a Gnarly satellite aboard is all fueled and ready to go. If you're wondering how I'm getting this effect, by the way, I've got a mod which gives you fuel vents, which basically just kind of gives you fuel venting effects. It's kind of cool. Anyways, yeah, let's get into this launch. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we'll just, as usual, we'll rotate to 90 degrees and we're going to start pitching immediately as soon as we hit 90 degrees. Now I'm going to take a slightly shallower approach on this launch than the last one. We can't do a gravity turn because it doesn't have any fins on, so there's no stability at the bottom of the rocket. Right, so we're actually at 45 degrees, much earlier than I expected we would end up. You see we are starting to lose control here ever so slightly. Very careful. Let's check that. Thrust, yeah, we've got full thrust. So I'm having to fight this a little bit. It's trying to flip backwards on me, which isn't great, but we're getting up to 10,000 meters now, so things should start to stabilize a little bit. Anyways, we're gonna try and hold here now. I'm hands off at the minute. We're gonna wait for a little while until our apoapsis reaches around about 50 kilometers. We've just run out of fuel on that stage, so we'll go for our next stage. And now I'm actually going to throttle down a little bit just so that we're not fighting the air resistance too much. And once our apoapsis reaches 50 kilometers, we're going to start pitching down towards the horizon. So I'm going to throttle back up again. Like I say, I'm going to start pitching down slowly towards the horizon, staying roughly within our prograde marker, although we are high enough in the atmosphere now that the actual air resistance is no longer a thing. So now we're going to start pitching all the way down to the horizon. And the point here now is that we are trying to extend our trajectory as more than raising it. So yeah, we'll point straight at the horizon now. I'm also going to point a little bit right of the 90 degree line on the nav ball. You can see our apoapsis is raising. We've just hit 55 kilometers because these fairings do actually auto-deploy, which is pretty cool. So you can see our apoapsis is now starting to reach 70 kilometers. So once we hit 70 kilometers apoapsis, I'm going to pitch down to about 10 degrees below the horizon. We've just run out of fuel on that, so we will fire our next stage. Oh dearie me, what's going on? We appear to... There. Where's our... What's going on here? So, for some reason, I have lost the payload delivery system. It's focusing on the same craft. This wasn't supposed to happen. Right, I appear to have lost the payload. I have no idea what happened there. There we... The camera is screwed. What's going on with the camera? Oh dear, I don't know what's going on here. That's it. But then it switches back to this camera for some reason. Oh, right, we've just had something blow up. This has never happened to me before. I have no idea. I have no idea what happened there. Evidently, though, my camera was focused on the control core of the second stage of the rocket, not the actual probe. So is this the probe? Well, I mean, this is the satellite. What's its apoapsis is minus... What? I think... What's... Look at our speed! Something tells me that we've had a bit of a Kraken attack here. Holy Jesus Christ, look at that. Oh my god, look at that trajectory. He's gone into stellar. Oh, the Kraken. This is the first time I've seen the Kraken in this game for years. Oh, so that is the docking port. That is now going at 29,000 meters per second. Heading God knows where, out just into the middle of nowhere, into the... Jesus Christ. You know what? Since the probe survived... Since the probe survived, I'm actually tempted to call this not a success per se, but a kind of semi-successful, weird, mad event thing that happens. Yeah. Pure. If this thing had broken, I would have re-recorded that take. But look, we're already a ridiculous height from Kerbin. Oh my god, we'll be out of the solar system in probably a few days. In fact, 1 day and 4 hours till our periapsis. 46 minutes till we leave Kerbin. And then, I mean, it just stops. The trajectory just stops at 223 days away. Oh my god. Yeah, let's keep an eye on that one. Anyways, let's call it for this mission and go back to the Space Center and see what we can do next. So you can see we have our stage destroyed messages. So let's see what this has to say. It attempted a propulsive landing but could not find a point of control. Okay. Right, yeah, apparently that's what it thought I did. Stage burned up in the atmosphere. Attempted propulsive landing. Attempted propulsive landing. Okay, and we have a world first as well. We have initiated the first flyby of the moon. Oh no, let's have a look at this. It's this one, isn't it? Yeah, we must have literally just skipped past it. Skipped past the moon. I mean... It's a shame you can't see the moon's sphere of influence in this. But it did not take very long to get out to the moon at all. That was a matter of minutes. Tell you what, I'll rename this because that is the docking port. So let's rename this thing. I'm just going to call this the gnarly dude, you know. Because this is insane. I mean, look, the moon is well behind us. We are well on our way into deep space. We're actually heading in the direction of Sarnus at the minute. And Erlem over there. Is this a planet? No, that's just a star. But yeah, let's leave this doing its thing and hopefully we'll get a little bit of science from that. We've escaped the gravitational influence of the moon now as well, and that happened in a matter of seconds. So that's given us a bit of a reputation and money, which is always nice. So let's think about what we're actually going to do, because what we need to do is actually complete the 2 contracts, or the 1 contract in particular that we've got. We should get that contract eventually, hopefully. But the Establish a Stable Orbit contract, as I mentioned, requires us to return back to Kerbin and not just launch into orbit. So for that, we need a return pod. So if we go into the BAB, in the probes list, down here we will see that there is an SGRV1 return capsule pod, which is, it's a probe core which allows you to return samples back to Kerbin. Now, I'm not actually 100% sure how effective this is going to be right now. Literally, I'm only going to use this just to get us into an orbit and then get back down again. But I am going to try and put a satellite into orbit with it as well. But before we can think about the satellite, we actually need to finish building this off, because in its current configuration, that is just the core and it will not land. So obviously, we need a parachute, we need a heat shield, we'll also need a retrograde engine as well. So for that, what we'll do is we will search in the search bar SGRV. That's just SG will do it. And now we've got all of these parts, and the parts we want are obviously the SGRV3 return capsule heat shield, the SGRV return capsule parachute, which goes on the bottom there, and then of course the retro pack as well. And now I'm going to create a sub-assembly with this, so we'll just hit 4 on our keyboards, reroute to the bottom part, we'll come over and we'll access our sub-assemblies, and then just call this the sample return pod. So let's see how the sandstone block 1 works with this. And then we will, I think what I might do is I might actually see if it'll fit under here, because there is actually space under here. You can see it's empty. So where is our sample return pod? We've got it here. Yeah, that will fit in easily. So let's grab a decoupler then. And it's a shame we don't have robotics yet, actually, because I'd love to be able to just flip this over and then flip it back down again. But at the minute, this is going to literally just be here to deliver a satellite, and this thing will obviously be coming back. So what we'll do is we'll grab a decoupler. You know, I think I might just use the same decoupler I used for the last rocket, because it actually suits this one quite nicely with the engine. It's just the right size. We will need to shift it up though, because it's actually locking into a node inside of the sample return pod. But yeah, so we'll pop that on there. We'll lower this down so it doesn't look quite so silly. And now we'll pop this. Actually, we need to make sure that there is a decoupler here as well. What we can do then is we can kind of jank this a little bit by using a structural panel. We'll place this down here to give us a load of nodes, and we'll try and make sure it's relatively central. The easiest way to do that, of course, is with our translation tools. Make sure they are set to absolute. Make sure our snapping is on, and it should just snap it straight into the snap point, and then we can just move it around into the middle. That looks good to me, so I'll move this down. And now what I might do instead is I might actually have... Tell you what I'm going to do. I'll move this to the side for the second, because what I want to do is I want to take... there we are. I know what's going on here. I want to take this docking port off. There we go. So we'll grab that, and I want to have the docking port attached to this, so we can use the main node for the actual docking port that's going to get rid of the nose. So we'll pop this back into position. We'll place that on the node that is, yeah, it's the one that's lower now. It's the one in the middle of the plate. So that is now on its own separate node. So what we should be able to do now then is grab the decoupler. We'll find one that is the right width, actually, because I'd like one that is the same kind of... There we go, that one, and there we go. You see, it's automatically snapping straight onto it, which means we can pop this onto that node. Now we can actually get rid of the nose and then deploy the sample return module. Anyway, with regards to the actual satellite that we're going to put up, let's see if there are any other satellites that specifically go with this. Okay, you can see we do have a couple of more Pathfinder satellites. So that's the S46, the Pathfinder 8, Pathfinder 11, 7. Now I think I'm going to try this one and see what it looks like. That looks okay. I mean, it probably could do with a, an actual cover on it. So what I'll do is I will come into coupling again, and I'm actually going to use the Ep02 bucket for this, the interstage, and see what this does, because I've never used this before, and I assume it is just, yeah, it's basically just a, something that'll hold stuff like this inside. So is there a hidden node inside? It doesn't look like it. There's a node up there, though. I have a feeling that these actually have a purpose and that I'm making a bit of a mess of this. But I'll place that there, and then we will move this down. See how low it goes. Now then, I didn't realise it didn't have anything on the end, so that's not ideal. You know what, let's actually check. What is it? The Ep02, isn't it? Let's see what other Ep02 things we've got. Well, then looking at it, we've got an interstage adapter there. What, that might do something. This is looking more close to the actual... I'm starting to see the proper ICBM here now with this. I don't really want to modify the original rocket too much on this one. I just want to literally get this mission out of the way. And I feel like I might be overcomplicating it slightly. So we'll try and get this quickly finished off, and then get ourselves actually, gone. Right, so I've pretty much got this to its final state, and the only things I have done to this now, really, this rocket, is apart from adding the payload in the nose cone, is I have added some RCS thrusters, as you can see, just to give us a bit more RCS control, and also some retro thrusters on the nose cone, because we will be decoupling that. And what I've done with these is I placed them on in 3x symmetry, but then I detached this one from symmetry, made sure this one is at 100%, and then make sure the other two is less than that. So basically that will kick the nose cone away from the trajectory of the actual rocket, a little bit like a launch escape system does. So yeah, let's save the edits and let's actually get this thing flying. Now, I haven't tested this yet, so I don't know if this is going to work, but it does say it's got over 303,500 delta V, only just, so this will have to be an almost perfect launch. But there are a couple of tricks which we can potentially use to maybe get the satellite up into an actual orbit. Anyways, let's save the edits and let's get into this launch. So here we are on the pad, ready for the third launch of the Sandstone Mark 1, although this is the Sandstone Mark 1B. It's carrying a Pathfinder 11 satellite for orbit, as well as a return module. Now let's get into this launch. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have a launch. So as soon as we have completed our roll program, we will start our pitch program. So I'm going to just pitch down to 5 degrees on the nav ball, and we're going to wait there until we get up to about 2,500 meters. At which point we will make sure we are centered in the prograde marker and turn off our SAS to initiate the gravity turn. We'll look at the external camera, see what that looks like. I will have more external cameras eventually, it's just the cameras we have at the moment on this are very, very chunky. We will be at 10,000 meters any minute now. Oh, Jesus, right. Oof. That was very close, I very nearly lost that. It's trying to pitch up. We're having to fight this a little bit here. Right, we've stabilised, we're going to sit here, and we're going to wait until our apoapsis reaches 50 kilometers. We are going to throttle down slightly though, because we're starting to get some aerodynamic effects. Now, I was hoping that this would actually get us into orbit, but it turns out that it's not going to get us anywhere bloody near, is it? So it looks to me, it was saying it had enough delta V, but we don't have any other engines really on this, so I don't think this is really going to work. We will keep our flight going though and see just how high we can get. Oh, our apoapsis is nearly at 70 kilometers, so I'm going to throttle right down to try and conserve fuel. I'm going to point ourselves at the horizon and see just how far we can extend our periapsis. We've got 150 meters per second remaining. Delta V in this stage. We have no other stages, so I might have to set this up like the ICBM setup, you know, because we have just run out of fuel in that stage. Enjoy the view. Oh, it's coming back towards us. I was going to say we'll enjoy the view of the booster flying away from us, but I don't think we're quite high enough yet. Right, it's trying to fly past us, isn't it? Anyways, let's get out of this camera. Right, so, well, we'll activate the RCS again and see what we can do. I mean, we're not going to get ourselves up into orbit like this, are we? So it's a kind of a failed launch, I guess, is this one. Tell you what, we'll count this as a test, though, and see how the staging works. So, now we're up in orbit, we might as well, or up in space, should I say, we might as well get rid of the decoupler, and unfortunately, that decoupler had the satellite. Oh, dearie me. That's that payload gone. Let's test our RCS though and see what it's like. So we'll get ourselves pointed radial out. And let's see what happens if we start using translation. You see, without the payload, it is actually trying to nose forward, but we could always fix that by just upping the thrust limiter a little bit. Like you can see, it's much more stable. So that's just one way that you can balance the RCS, and of course this doesn't have any forward thrust, which is why we are burning in this direction. Although it looks like we've just run out of RCS fuel. Yep, we've run out of monopropellant, so that is that one done. Let's see how coupling the nose cone works, if it works at all. Ah, there we go. Right, obviously I didn't have the staging set up properly, but at least the nose cone detaches. Then we can decouple the thing as well. Oh, that's the satellite. So yeah, I had the staging well wrong with this satellite, which is a shame. But okay, oh well, that's it's going to re-enter into the atmosphere in a nice fiery little fireball. So this is the entry probe that we are using. So I'm going to test out the re-entry capabilities of this. So we will point it at retrograde. And I mean, this should work. It's a pre-designed thing, but we might as well treat this as an actual test. We'll go 3, 2. Actually, no, we will first of all start the staging stack because we don't want to be staging everything straight away. So we'll stage the engine separately and then we'll go 3, 2, 1. Bugger. We did activate everything on that, which isn't going to work anyways yet. So this is a complete and utter failure of a mission, I'm afraid. We've got the core here. I mean, it would still re-enter. It's still got its heat shield, although it's technically not inside the heat shield anymore. So yeah, that's burning up on re-entry. Oh dear, that is definitely a failure. Anyways, I think I'm probably going to call it for this mission as we start to see our re-entry burn effects kick in. And yeah, in the next one, I'll probably design that rocket to be more of an ICBM style setup. It looks like we are. These should blow up, but there's a risk we're going to end up bombing this city here. Anyways, yeah, as I was saying, in the next one, I'm probably going to try and build that rocket up into a ICBM setup and actually do what I intended to do in this video, which is create a stable orbital launch system, only for small payloads, but we are, going to eventually progress through the game. Let's just sit here and watch this re-enter because it's not going to blow up, is it? Oh, it bloody survived. It bloody well survived. I mean, we've splashed into the ocean, so we've at least got one of miles. Oh, this game sometimes, I swear, it's so unpredictable, you never know what's going to happen. Anyways, yeah, like I was trying to say, I'm actually going to leave this. Oh, look at those weeds. This is a part of Parallax 2, is this? Look at the I mean, it'll be pretty sweet going underwater, I think, on this game. Anyways, like I was saying, I'm going to leave it for this video now. We'll try and get that mission done in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment and let me know what you thought, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.